Managing our finances effectively in our 20s is crucial. But what's even more crucial is that we're actually investing during our 20s, because this is the decade where our money actually has the most potential to grow, hopefully allowing us to achieve financial freedom later on in life. To help me discuss all the different investments we should make in our 20s, I'm joined by my good friend Kia Commodore, founder of Pennies to Pounds. Hello, Kia.
Hello, Ola.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm happy to be in the studio. It's incredible.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for coming back onto the
Of course,
podcast.
always had to.
How have you been?
I've been good.
Busy?
Tired. I feel like that's my go-to. When people ask me, how are you? My first thing is always tired. But I feel like fatigue it's okay. It means I've got a lot going on.
And it means that you're building.
Yes.
And lots of changes are happening,
Yes.
it seems, which I can't even wait to delve into soon. But I guess for those who don't know who you are and maybe haven't listened to our previous episode before, please introduce yourself to everyone listening.
Yes, of course. My name is Kia Commodore. I am a financial educator, author. I have to remember to tag that on.
Yes.
And founder of Pennies to Pounds, a financial education platform dedicated to teaching Gen Z and millennials about money.
And the fact that you are now a published author since you were last on the podcast is crazy.
Well, I know, right? I keep forgetting to add that bit on. It's crazy.
How's it been being an author now, knowing your book's out there?
I think it's incredible because I get people who have read the book or have gotten their kids the book, and it's just amazing to see the impact.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, you know yourself running all things money. You get people every so often who tell you, thank you, you've helped impact this and that. And then now to have a book, and I'm really pushing people to make sure that it's in their local libraries because of where I grew up. I didn't grow up in an area of money.
Yeah.
I'm very aware that not everyone has the finances, especially now, to buy the book. But we have local libraries, and I lived in my library when I was younger. Mum would always take me to the library.
Wow.
So a lot of libraries have it. My local one does, which is amazing.
That's
Walk in and see
insane,
it. Yeah,
isn't it?
so it's amazing. It's amazing.
And you've just been on an incredible journey, and you are one of the creators that I really look up to because you're just doing amazing things in this space. And yeah, I'm just so proud of everything you've done.
Stop making it cry. You just started.
And I guess let's strip it all the way back. What actually made you start Pennies to Pounds? Because I remember seeing your tweet when I was all the way back in university.
Well, I was in university too.
Yeah.
Crazy. It was a build-up.
Yeah.
Of a number of things. I was always into money because I started my first business at 9. So I was always earning money, had to understand how to manage my money.
Yeah.
Then when I got to university, I expected during my freshers week, like, of course we're going to learn about money. I never learned it through school. I said 100%. I moved away from home. I'm like 3 hours away from home. I must have a lesson on money. And it never came. But a lot of my friends would turn to me because they knew that I knew how to manage my money because I had earned a lot growing up. And then I realized, you know what, we need to find a way to bridge that gap. So initially I was making YouTube videos that were predominantly distributed amongst my friends and then maybe friends of friends.
Yes.
And then the Help to Buy ISA, so that was what the first tweet was on, was coming to a close. And one of my friends has said, hey, Kia, my mom wants me to open this, but I don't understand it. Can you explain it? And she was one who told me to tweet it.
Okay.
I hadn't barely any followers on Twitter. But she told me to tweet it because it's easier to kind of put it in order to put my Instagram stories. So I was going to screenshot my tweets and explain each one.
Right.
That was the plan. But I didn't have a chance because I was working part-time, well, obviously whilst being at uni. So I made the Twitter thread, posted it thinking, okay, cool. On my lunch break, I'll come back and I'll put up my story. When I came back, it had gone viral.
Wow.
In 4 hours of working. I had no idea. And I think someone had told me, because I used to work in Apple, someone had told me on the shop floor, like, Kia, I think I saw you on Twitter. And I was like, me? Is it me? No. When I came back to my phone, I was like, my phone was on 2%.
Wow.
Bear in mind, I got to work with 100%. It was on 2% because my notifications just kept going all the time I was at work. It was insane.
And from that tweet to now, what have you accomplished alongside your book? Lots. Fill us in.
Lots. Worked with almost all the major banks, both Challenger and traditional. Had a campaign with Nike, which was still incredible, one of my highlights. Had a TV show with Channel 4. Been able to travel out, outside of the UK to talk, which is incredible. I think, and just being able to educate so many young people and to see that impact that the platform that I created when I was 21 has had on people is just, it's always an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess one of my quick fire questions for you alongside that is, what's been one of your greatest financial achievements?
Ooh, greatest financial achievements. I would probably say two things, but they tie into each other. So first thing was buying my car. So the current car that I have, I paid for it outright. So be able to be in a position to just buy the car. And every year since then, paying all of my car stuff annually.
Okay.
Because when I was younger and I first got a car, I couldn't afford to do that. I'm paying monthly.
Especially insurance.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm paying monthly. But now, I mean, it's an expensive month and I have to renew, but I pay for everything annually, sorry. So to be in a position where I can do that financially is a great feeling.
Wow. And I reckon loads of people probably don't even see that as actually a privilege, because it's obviously cheaper to pay car insurance annually, roadside assistance annually.
I pay everything annually. Well, my road tax, everything I can.
Yeah.
Because as you know, they add on interest for the privilege of paying it monthly.
Yeah.
And obviously sometimes financial situations change, but I'm just grateful that my financial situation for the last couple of years has allowed me to do everything annually.
Which is testimony to your business, because you are a business owner, which sometimes can be stressful as it is. So the fact that you're able to do that is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, so proud of you. I'm trying not to fangirl you too hard on the podcast.
No, honestly, I'm proud of both of us, honestly.
It's been a journey, hasn't it? But I guess my second question, just so people can get to know Kia a little bit more, is what's one guilty pleasure you like to spend your money on?
My money on? Do you know what? I'm not really a spender. Not because of anything. You know, we kind of look at people who... I'm not stingy. I don't save all my money. But if I had to think about it, more recently, so I say the last 6 to 12 months, I have really... Certain things that I really enjoy, I spend more money on.
Okay.
So, like, I'm more like to buy a nicer bag. And when I say nice, I mean a couple £100, right?
Yeah.
Like a good quality bag, or... coats. Oh my gosh, I spend a lot of money on coats.
Wow.
And I buy good quality coats. Honestly.
You have to in the UK, to be fair.
You have to. And I've started getting certain things that I like tailored. So ordered like made to measure. Yeah, I know.
Oh wow.
But that's one thing I love. I love getting like things that I know I wear on repeat.
Yes.
High quality versions or made to measure versions.
Guys, she's made it. Tailored version clothes.
Yeah. All of my shirts now are tailored.
And you're wearing a nice one today,
I am. I mean, this is not because I've been driving for ages because it's all creased. But this was made to me.
Taking notes.
I love it.
No, I love that. And obviously today on the podcast, we're here to chat about all the different investments we should be making in our 20s, just to make sure we are set up perfectly for our future selves. So what are the different investments we should be making in our 20s?
Oh, that's a good question. So there's a few different things.
Yeah.
I would say the first investment you need to make is in your financial security. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. But I think a big one that we hear a lot is emergency funds.
Yes.
I know you speak about it all the time, so do I. And sometimes it can go over your heads because you hear it so much. You're like, okay, emergency funds. But genuinely, you need to have an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Because you and I know when emergency strikes, you cannot be looking at what you already earn.
Yeah.
Because that's likely going to put you in some sort of deficit for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
And I've had emergencies really strike. I've had a time where I was driving my car and my brakes went on the motorway.
Wow.
Yeah, thankfully I made it home safe. But the garage quoted me £600 the next day to fix my car. Thankfully I had an emergency fund.
Yeah.
But imagine if I hadn't. That's just money straight out of what you didn't plan.
Yep.
It's got to go there. And that's on the leaner, the nicer side of things. Sometimes you could lose your job overnight.
Yeah.
And it does take, in this economy, it takes a while to get a new job. So that financial security is an investment that you need to make into yourself.
Yeah.
Alongside things like insurances, over and above the regular ones, if you're a homeowner, home insurance, but for yourself, whether you are working a 9 to 5, or especially if you're freelance or working for yourself, things like income protection, because we don't have the luxury of sick pay if you're, if you can't work, and you can still get that as a 9 to 5. I think a lot of people think you can't. You can. Yeah. Looking into things like life insurance and having that conversation, especially with your parents and loved ones about life insurance, really big thing. And it's cheaper the earlier you start.
Yes.
Because you're less likely to claim, right? So all of these things really do compound. So that's probably one side. Then the next thing I would say is investing in your future. So pensions is my favorite thing to talk about because everyone hates talking about it. Yeah. Everyone thinks it's for old people, and that's why I love talking about it to young people. Because yes, I mean, you're going to benefit from a pension when you're in your 50s and 60s, absolutely. But the earlier you start, the more money you'll have.
Yes.
I had to get a cab the other day, and the cab driver asked me what I did. We got into a conversation about money, and he was something like 53, 54. And I almost shocked him because we were talking about pensions. Yeah. He didn't have enough in his pension.
Oh, wow.
He only had about 20, 30K in his pension, which is nothing, right? If you think about it, if you actually look at how much you spend over a year, that's probably less than a year for his lifestyle. And he had a property. So that really sunk in with him. And he was like, I wish someone told me about this when I was younger. Yeah. So that's obviously one example that I have. But we all know that everything compounds. The earlier you start, the longer your money has to build for you. And when you get to your 50s, everyone once told me they want to retire at 35. But if you're not really saving for your pension and saving for your retirement, how are you retiring at 35?
Literally.
Well, hoping that you'll win the lottery, or hoping that you'll land on the next big idea and become a millionaire. You really have to plan for these things because those are few and far between.
Yeah.
And then alongside that, investing in terms of the stock market. And I think that is a bit scary if you haven't done it already. But there are things like stocks and shares ISA in the UK that we are lucky enough to have, which means that you can obviously invest up to the value of £20,000 across all ISAs, but in this instance, stocks and shares ISA. And anything that you earn within that in terms of interest is tax-free, which is great.
Yeah.
But I think looking at investing and really planning for your future are some of the things that young people in their 20s should really be doing for the future. And I know it's hard, right?
It is.
If I ask you to imagine you're 45, you don't know what you're going to look like. You can't even think that far ahead.
Yeah.
But when you get there, you're going to be so grateful that you in your 20s made those plans so that you can live a more comfortable life when you get there.
Yeah. And this is why I wanted to discuss investments in our 20s, because like you said, power of compound. So even if it is you just investing £10 a week, like £50 a month, your 60-year-old self is going to be like, thank goodness Ola at 25 did that, because you know, if that little amount can like compound and compound and compound. I think people underestimate that, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. I think there is this idea that I think compounding and pensions and all that, they don't sound fun. I think the problem is you and I are always combating because a lot of the finance things that are so important aren't fun.
Yeah.
And there are much more fun things to be putting your money into. You know, there's holidays coming up. There's so many things that are going on that are more exciting than let my money compound for the future. Yeah. But it is having to have that forward vision. And I'll give another example. My dad, he's 51 now.
Yes.
Sorry, Pops, had to reveal it.
And an influencer as well.
He is in his own right. He's doing well, home renovations. But he's 51. So he will just about qualify to get access to his pension early at 55. Just made it. And he is over the moon. He started working at 18. And even though no one told him, something told him, I should probably be thinking about me in my 50s. Wow. And now he's here. He's like, oh, Kia, when I hit 55, I am chilling.
Wow.
And be able to see him and see the impact. 18-year-old him didn't know what that meant. Yes. 20-year-old him didn't know what that meant. 30-year-old him. But he just knew that if I just keep doing this thing, then hopefully it'll pay off. And now he's looking at all his pension pots and all the savings and investments he's got all over the place, put it all together. And he's like, Kia, I am good. And that's what you want to be feeling when you get to that point, right? And hopefully you have other stuff going on that will just add on top of what you've already saved. But you really need to be thinking that far ahead. Yeah. Because you don't want to hit 55 and think, I could have drawn down, well, it might be older for us, but you don't want to hit that age and think, I could have taken it out, but I didn't save enough, so I've got to keep going, keep working. You don't really want that for yourself.
And this is it. And I think it's not even a case of us setting ourselves up for like an early retirement. I think you want to set yourself up so you have the choice. And I think the choice is so important because I mean, we saw last winter, many like pensioners were unable to cover their like gas bill, let alone rent or mortgage that you might have. And that's the worst thing you want to get to, is like you spend all your years working and then you're like, oh, if only I added an extra 1% to my pension pot, or if only I had life insurance so I covered X amount. Or I think there's just so much that just goes amiss. And that's why I'm so glad I've got you on the podcast today, because I think these topics need to be touched on a little bit deeper. And you also mentioned life insurance and income protection. I guess for anyone listening that maybe hasn't ever heard of that, would you mind just breaking that down and how it works?
Yeah, so income protection pretty much is protecting your income if you are in a position where you cannot work. So that could be illness, it could be something more drastic and more, you know, which means you physically can't work. And depending on the kind of policy that you get, it will either cover a percentage of your income or all of it for a period of time. But you have to check your policy that you take out. But that is essentially what I like to just call the sick pay for the freelancers and entrepreneurs. Yes. We don't get it because you are your own boss, which is great in one aspect, but a bit like, oh, nah, you know, I need to take time off. In the other. So having that gives you that freedom and that protection. But you can also get it when you work a 9 to 5. And that's something that I wish I knew earlier, because I had a period of time where I'd injured myself and I didn't qualify for sick pay at my work. Oh, wow. So I had to go for statutory sick pay, which, if you know that, like, is next to nothing. Compared to what I was earning, I'm like, that's next to nothing. But if I had something like that in place, I probably could have, you know, lent on that and had some money to cover me. But that is essentially what it is. And then life insurance is a bit more technical because there's different types of life insurance. But to put it simply, it covers you so that when you get to a certain point, so some of my family members have it, so if they were to no longer be with us, then either a sum of money or it's paid out in a regular interval to your beneficiaries. They have that to be able to use towards things like your funeral fund. Again, you can get funeral cover,
Yep.
but just so there's peace of mind.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people don't have that because they're unaware of it. And I think young people don't have it because who wants to think about the end when I'm still at the beginning, right? If you told me to think about, you know, when it's end days, I'm not thinking about that.
Yeah.
But the reality is that even just having the policy to know that if anything were to happen to me, hopefully another 100 years, but if anything were to happen to me, my loved ones and whoever else will get a sum of money so that they're not having to take on my financial burdens. They're not having to think of, oh my gosh, because funerals are not cheap.
Nope.
You know?
Or inheritance tax.
I'm about to say things like if I'm passing an asset, inheritance tax, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
But at least then if you pass down an asset and you're like, well, we've got life insurance, we can use some of that money to pay off that, right? You know you're covered. And that's obviously very top level. But these two things are things that you should definitely look into regardless of your situation at the moment.
Yeah. And this is why we have these conversations, because they're actually really easy steps to implement. It's just knowing to implement those steps, right? So I'm glad we touched on that. And then obviously you mentioned about emergency funds.
Yes.
So obviously, Kia, you're great at managing your finances. So how did you actually go about building your own emergency fund, in case there's anyone listening thinking, I don't have the income or I'm struggling to like be disciplined? Like, how did you build your own?
Well, I am glad you asked this because I started building my emergency fund when I was at university.
Okay.
And if anyone knows me, I had no money at university.
Yeah.
Zero. Like I'm not even joking. I had no money at uni.
Yeah.
You're laughing. Thanks for laughing at it's fortune. I had no money.
You're wearing tailored clothes now, so you don't get much sympathy.
Well, do you know what? Look, 18-year-old me had to struggle, so 27-year-old me could live a good life.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is what it is. But genuinely, I didn't have money. My student finance wouldn't cover things, and I had to work alongside my studies just to get by. I wasn't even to be like, I can go out partying. I didn't have money, but I knew that an emergency fund was important.
Yeah.
So I just decided to put away what I could afford. And at that point, I could afford £5 a week, which is £20 a month, which for a lot of people, they think, well, what's the point? £20 a month is not going to move the needle. But the reality is, at the end of the year, that's a good chunk of money that I put away, right? And the aim is that you're not putting money into an emergency fund today that in 2 months' time you're going to need. We hope that's not the case. You're probably going to need it in a year's time, 2 years' time. Obviously, we can't plan for emergencies. But that was what I started off with. And then when my income got better, because in my second and third year, you know, things looked up for me. First year was a struggle, but things looked up for me second and third year. I was able to say, oh, I was doing £5.
Yeah.
I can now afford £25 because I've got more money now.
Yes.
And I think it's more just getting into that habit of it. Because a lot of people say, I haven't got the money. But if you can afford even £1, it's more about getting into the habit of putting money away. So when your income increases, it's not foreign to you to say, I've got to take a chunk out towards my emergency fund. Yeah. It's just normal. I'm just now up in the amount because I earn more. So I think that was more what I was trying to get myself into. Even though I can only afford £5 a week, that was me getting used to, you know, an extra £5. I'm not seeing that in my actual account balance because that's going into my emergency fund. And that is if anything happens. And there were the odd occasion where something would happen. And I'm like, thank goodness for my savings. I can just dip in there and I can take it and I'm okay.
Yeah. And this is it. It's about starting small. And I'm so glad you mentioned about university, because when I was at uni, I think I saved like £10 a week. And anyone knows me from university, they knew there was 2 or 3 cases when my car battery died. So that was like £100 for a new battery. And I remember the AA man, one of the times, he was like, oh, it's all right, mummy and daddy are probably paying for this. And I was like,
no.
there ain't no bank of mum and dad. Like, this is coming out of my emergency fund. And like you said, that's like, what, £10? I think it was like £10 a month or so. So I think like it's £10 a week, I think. I can't remember. But anyway, 10 times 10 was 100. So at least I knew just those 10 regular installments of £10, which you think is nothing, actually helped me in those scenarios when I needed it more than once. Do you know what I mean? I think it's remembering that. But also remembering every bit of money you put in is earning interest, right? And people forget that.
Yeah, people really forget that you're putting it away. And it might be lower interest than other savings account you might have, but it is still, like you said, it's still growing for you. So that's extra money on top. And who doesn't want extra money? Literally. I've never met someone who says no to free money. Yeah. That's why I'm yet to meet someone. And if you are that person, then give Ola a DM. Because I'm still yet to meet someone who doesn't like free money. So if you're not doing that, knowing that your money you could actually earn extra money, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, this is it. And then you obviously touched on investing in the stock market as well. And obviously I know you invest. So how did you start your investing journey? And what tips would you share for those maybe looking to start?
This is so funny. I did a talk this week actually, and I was talking about how I started investing.
Yeah.
And it's such a funny story. So I was at university again.
Yes.
All my key pivotal changes happened in uni.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. I was too
Thank
busy
you.
dancing and getting drunk.
I told you I couldn't afford it. So I had to really get serious with my money. I couldn't afford to dance.
You had to get that bag
Yeah,
up.
I had to. Unless it was a free event, I couldn't afford to dance. So I was at home when my friends are out. That's probably why I did so much.
Just toe tapping in
Yeah,
your bedroom.
I was like, just Snapchat me. That was me. But I was at university. I remember this was second year. So remember I told you things started to look up for me a little bit financially.
Yeah.
I got a better paying job. I had a bit of extra money left over every month. So I remember calling my dad to ask him how he invested. And when he told me how he invested, it sounded like the Stone Age.
Wow.
I said, I'm sure there's a better way to start investing. He was with a traditional bank, and it was just so archaic the way they did it. And I said, no, surely not. Like in this day and age, there's got to be an easier way to invest.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I found that you could do it with just £1. Because the way he was telling me, he's like, you'd have at least £200 in my place. And I said, no. Found one that could do £1. So I put in £20.
Okay.
£20, because obviously you can put in money that you're not afraid to lose. As a uni student, I said £20. If I never see that back, I'll be okay. Put that in there. And that was the most obsessed I've ever become over a chunk of money.
Wow.
I was watching at £20 multiple times a day for 2 weeks. I was logging into my account. I was watching it go up and down, up and down. And I had chosen, so whenever you start investing, or if you have already started investing, you'll know that obviously it's ranked in different risk levels.
Yes.
So I went for the highest risk. I said the bigger the risk, the bigger reward. Not financial advice, by the way. Just telling you my story. But that's what I did. I said, I'm going to go for the highest risk possible. I said, I'm young. I can weather that storm.
Yeah. That
was the most emotional turmoil I've ever had when it comes to money. Because I remember my £20, I checked in the next day, I was like £22. I said, this is great.
Yeah.
Next day I checked, it was 15. I said, oh my gosh, I've lost £5. But the moral of that was, I was monitoring it so much, and that's not what you do, obviously, when you invest. We're not checking it that frequently because we're not trading. We're actually investing for the long term.
Yeah.
But as someone who was trying to understand how to invest, I needed to understand that this is how the market works.
Yeah.
And it forced me to begin more education around investing and what that means. And obviously to learn that checking it daily is not good for your health and it's not good for the money, you know. I don't need it yet, so let's leave it. But it really did get me interested in investing.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, if you're unsure, do what I did, pick an amount that if you never see it back, you'll be okay.
Yes.
You know, your life savings. It might be £10 for you, might be £5. Throw it in there and just get obsessed over it.
Yes.
Because then that forces you to understand, and what did I invest in? But what does the risk tolerance mean? Should I have gone for something lower? Or the company's in this fund, what actually is a fund? Those are all the questions I was asking just by watching that money in my investment account. So I think as much as it caused me emotional pain, it was great in terms of my education and getting me interested in investing.
And again, this is where starting small is so important, because again, firstly, there is risk when you're investing, right? So you want to make sure you're comfortable with the money you're investing first. And like, secondly, that money still has the potential to grow as well, right? And so that's why I'm like going on my sister like all the time, like, Bemi, I know you're only investing £50 a month, but you will love yourself. When you get to 30, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I started with that small amount, because that's going to be something that, I don't know, maybe go towards your future house or, you know, future babies. I don't know what you're planning to do, but you'll be thankful you did it. Exactly that. And so, I think that's really important. And I guess, how would you tell what would you say to your younger self now who was maybe obsessing over that £20?
I don't think I'd say much. I'd probably hold her hand. I'm like, girl, I understand. But I had to go through it because I think it was for the best. And I left that money in there because like I said, I understood about investing from that. But that was what helped me to really understand. I tried to tell my friends that, but again, it's hard to talk to 19-year-olds. You're saying, hey, put £20 into investments. When I'm like, we could go and get a takeaway. Like, it's actually £20.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to have that conversation. But again, you know, I told you, broke me. It was really serious about finances because they were limited.
Well, this is it. And it's like, I can't remember how much I started with my investing journey, but I remember I put in an amount and I was like, right, I'm just going to leave it. And then I slowly saw it grow, and I was like, okay, it's growing a little bit. Let's just keep going. And obviously there's something called pound cost averaging, where, you know, if you're investing in like regular installments, then hopefully your average of what the cost of your investments are costing you will kind of hopefully level out. But one thing you mentioned was about your future self. Yes. And one thing about our future self is our pension, right? That is so important. So why do you think it's important that we start investing in our pension as soon as possible?
A few different things. We have the state pension in the UK, which is good. I mean, it's an extra thing that we can have. But if you look at it, the state pension age is getting older and older. that, you know, whatever age you think you're going to retire and get a state pension, it's probably going to be way older.
Plus 10 years, plus 15.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
So, but that in of itself, considering, and as long as you've paid the maximum amount of national insurance contribution, which is about 35 years, for 35 qualifying years,
yes,
you're only getting around £11,500 a year. And I know probably most of you watching and listening probably already earn more than that.
Yep.
Or we'll get to that point where it's like, that's not going to cover anything. And that's obviously, that's okay and not great, but that's okay if you're mortgage free. If you're not mortgage free, that's a nightmare. Facts. So we have to look at other means because the hope is that you're not going to be working. You've been working since 18, 20, 21. Who wants to keep working when you hit 60, 70?
Yeah.
You don't want to. You want to rest.
Yeah.
You want to see what life's about, you know? You want to just see what life's saying. People say traveling is fun. Let me go and see.
Yeah.
Let me get on a cruise. That's what you want to be doing at that age, not working.
Yeah.
So the earlier you start, the more that you can benefit from that. Even more so, if you're working in a job, and this is probably one of the only times I'm very envious of people who work.
Same.
Is the workplace pension. If we had that, oh my gosh, that would be incredible. But the workplace pension, if you have not enrolled or opted out, I would definitely say, listen to this and maybe hopefully change your mind. But the workplace pension is a pension scheme that every employer in the UK has to enroll their employees into as long as they're over the age of 22 and then more than £10,000 per year. From then, you have to contribute a minimum of 8%, but at least 3% has to come from your employer. Yeah. So that means that on average, most people are probably going to contribute 5% towards your pension. So that's 5% out of your current pay slip, which I know a lot of people are saying, so that's money going, what? I could have had that today. But it's for your future self. So at least 5%. Some of the good employers, which I've had before, will do something which is matching your pension contribution. So if you have someone who matches it, oh my gosh, max it out.
And there's so many more companies now because it's a tax way of them saving money as well. I saw a firm matching up to 15%.
Oh my gosh, I would have chucked in 15% of my salary. I mean, yes, it's a sacrifice, but 30%.
It's insane.
It's just a delayed pay rise. That's what people forget.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, obviously, it's a pay cut for you because you don't have the money today, but you're deferring that money till later on in life.
Yeah.
And then your employer says, hey, we'll give you some extra money, not directly in your pocket, but we'll put it in your pension pot. It's like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So if you are working and you have been auto-enrolled, research around your workplace pension. Don't just automatically opt out to think of today.
Yeah. Think
about future you and can you do about 5%? If they're matching, can I go up to 8? What's the max I can do without? And obviously we can't say what percentage you should do because we're not living your life and we don't look at your finances. But I'll definitely say look into that. And then if you are looking to save extra, or you're like us, you have your business owners, freelancers, then you have your personal pension or private pension, depending on where you're going. And that is basically a pension fund that you can open up yourself and contribute and get tax relief, especially if you're contributing for your business. If you've got a limited company as well, there's additional tax relief that you can get from there. So there's so many different ways. Oh, and I almost forgot. I always forget this one, which is also really good. The Lifetime ISA.
Yes.
Also another good pension fund
that
you can use. If you're between the ages of 18 and 39, you can have a Lifetime ISA. And it's always touted as to get on the property ladder, which it is, and it's great. Save up to £4,000 per tax year and get an extra 25% on top, which is around £1,000 if you contribute the max. But once you bought your house, you can keep saving and still get the government bonus. Yeah. Which is just, again, free money. And that is my favourite term to hear. Whenever I can get free money, I'm going to go for it. I'm never going to say no. Yeah. So all of these things combined mean that if you plan it out well and plan it out in your 20s and just stick to a plan that you can manage on your finances and obviously tailor it as your finances increase and change over time, you're probably set up to do really well when you retire and live really comfortably. And that's what you want.
And this is it, isn't it? And it's like, I know a lot of us are struggling today, but even if it's that small sacrifice of an extra 1% into your pension pot, like that money, I think people don't realise how much that can grow. And I think what we need to start doing is actually playing around with compound interest calculators to see, okay, if I put in an extra £50 or an extra £100 a month into my pension pot, what does that look like? And I remember when I became self-employed 3 years ago now, which is crazy, I was putting in like a certain amount of money, then I increased it by £50, and then last summer, which maybe I need another review now, but last summer I put in an extra £50 because I was like, I can afford an extra £50 a month. That might mean, I don't know, one less bottle of wine per week. Do you know what I mean?
That's when you're spent.
Yeah, I love
it. That's when you're guilty spent.
I love a bottle of wine, guys.
Well, I love a bottle of wine.
So it's like, okay, let me just sacrifice that because again, my future self, an extra £50 per month is a lot and it will go a long way. So I think it's just making those small tweaks, guys, it's small sacrifices, and I think that's really important. But I guess it's very easy for us to both say, because I'd like to say that we are quite successful business owners and we've worked really hard to get to the point of where we're at. But what tips would you share to those who are maybe struggling financially and maybe feel like savings out of reach or investing in the stock market is out of reach?
I would say that figure out an amount that works for you and not for your peers. I think if you have conversations with your friends or you look online, you see people say, I'm putting away £1,000 into this. That might not be your reality, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it's called personal finance. It needs to be personal to you. If £5 is what you can do and you're like, you know what, I could probably spare £5 a week or even £5 a month towards saving and investing, put $250 into savings, $250 into investments, right? The amount is immaterial. It needs to work for you and something that you can be consistent with. If you say I'm going to do £50 and you do it for 2 months and realize it's too much and you stop completely, that's worse than doing £5 but doing it consistently and never stopping and just saying, right, I can manage it. So I say pick an amount, and the amount doesn't really matter. You can do £1, and that's the beauty of a lot of the platforms that we have now. If £1 is all you can afford, do £1 and then amend it when you can. So pick that amount. The number 2, I would say, is probably have a goal in mind. So when we're talking about things like pension, it's kind of hard to have that goal. But it doesn't need to be necessarily an age you want to retire, but a kind of retirement that you want. And I think if you go online and look at numbers, there are a lot of numbers and stats online that tell you roughly how much you should have in your pension pot to live a certain type of lifestyle when you get there. Because I've done this. And I know I'm going to be sipping pina coladas on the beach. So I'm like, right, what pension pot size do I need to have to be sipping my pina coladas? But that goal helps you to stay on track and reminds you why you're actually sacrificing the money today for future you. Or if it's for saving and you're saving for an emergency fund or anything else, why you're sacrificing that money when you could have gone out and done something with it or spent it on something in the corner shop. Why are you sacrificing that for that time when you're going to thank yourself? And there are many, many times we'll go throughout life where things crop up, you don't expect it, but I've had it before where things have cropped up and I check my savings, I'm like, oh, thank goodness I had that. I completely forgot because I've automated it. Don't even know how much I've got in there. And I'm like, hopefully I've got enough stuff. And I'm like, yes, brilliant. But when those things happen, you thank yourself. You're like, I'm so grateful that me in the past just said, right, I'm just going to keep putting that money in. So I think it's pick an amount that works for you and a frequency, and then have a goal. And those two things combined will kind of give you that motivation. But I think over and above motivation, that discipline to stay on track, because some months you're not going to feel motivated. Some weeks you're going to feel like, I could just take that out. You know, I've had a bad week. I could just take it out and go get my bottle of wine. You know, what's investing really? How am I going to get there? Am I really going to make it there? You know, you can have those kind of weeks and months, but the discipline that you're going to instill by doing this is what will help you to get there. That when you're there, you're like, oh my gosh, all because I listened to this one podcast, All Things Money, 40 years ago. Now I'm living a high life. They'll be there in their mansion saying, thanks, Ola. That's what we want. We want to see that.
I hope so.
I hope so.
All
that's
royalties, guys. No, and it's true. I think having that goal firstly is so important because, again, like you said, it can help us stay motivated. It can help us track our progress. And then also what I liked you said is about you actually mentioned comparing yourself to other people, blocking that noise on social media because it is all smoke and mirrors.
Oh,
and I feel like as a business owner, I have to have a reality check with myself every single month in the sense that, like, okay, yes, Ola, someone's bought a house, but 1, they might have bought with a partner. 2, they might have been gifted £100,000 deposit. 3, they might be using shared ownership. There's so many things that come into play when it comes to other people's finances that you do just need to stay in your own lane. And like you said, the amount you're saving or investing is immaterial. It's so relevant. It's just about the fact that you're building that habit and get yourself on track. And then when you can increase that amount, it's then like, okay, I can increase this by £50 or £10. And I think that's just the most important part, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think what you said there about comparing yourself and seeing people, like, for example, buying a house, I think I had to, about 2 years ago, I really had to sit down with myself and say to myself, what do I actually want? You know, like, because I used to think, oh my gosh, I need that picture with the keys. I need that desperately on my Instagram. I need the key picture ASAP, right? And that was what I was doing, everything to try and get. And I promise you, I was killing myself to try and get there. And then I sat down with myself and I was like, realistically, I don't even think I want to be a homeowner right now. It's not a never, but I just said it's not in my goals right now. But I was almost I wouldn't say brainwashed, but I was almost pushed into that goal because that's all you see online.
Yeah.
But if you take it another way, if you're following loads of influencers and they're always out flying out to this place, that place, then you're going to think, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well enough.
Yeah.
Like I need to be on holiday all the time, right? But realistically, you don't know how they're doing that. I flew out last year. Where was I going? I believe I was going to Jamaica.
Yes.
Right? So
Classic.
I'm half Jamaican. I was going back to Jamaica. And when I was waiting for my flight, there were influencers.
Okay.
And you're wondering, how did I know? They were all in the same brand of gear.
Yeah,
they were influencers,
okay,
right?
could tell.
And I could tell. There's about 10 of them. And I was like, oh, where are they, right?
Yeah.
And they sat in first class. I was not in first class. They were in first class, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. And because when I landed, I ended up going to have a look and I saw the brand trip. But again, if I didn't understand the influencer industry, I might have said, oh my gosh, I need to make more money.
Yes.
They were in first class and I ended up going to the Bahamas because we had a layover there for like an hour. And then we carried on to Jamaica. So they got off at the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And I ended up seeing it online because, like I said, I was wondering, where are they going? Because I was like, I didn't see them at Jamaica. And it made sense they got off there. But because I understand the industry, I know that they didn't pay for a single thing.
Yep.
But now if you're comparing yourself to someone who didn't even pay for the things that they're documenting and showing you, that's not even a fair comparison.
Yeah.
So I think it's really putting things into perspective of understanding what do you want, not what social media says you should have. And then understanding how do people get those things? Did they pay for it? Did someone else pay for it? Is it on finance? You know, is that the kind of lifestyle that I want?
Yeah.
Really and truly, do I want to be living my life on finance where I'm like dodging creditors and hoping that my card doesn't decline just so I can show online that I've got money? It's not really worth it.
It's not. And I think that's the perfect way to sum up everything we've discussed on this podcast because, yeah, I am guilty of it. And I preach this every single day to other people, my mentees, my clients and everything. But reality is we are shoved with so much consumerism in our faces that we do feel like we're falling behind very easily. And I think comparison is probably the biggest when we're in our 20s because there's so many possibilities to what our 20s could look like that it can just be like, oh, I'm just doing a rubbish job.
Absolutely. I've had friends come to me, like people that I might know from school, and they're like, oh my gosh, Kia, like I'm not doing well, but you're doing so well because you're a business owner. And I'm like, excuse me, in your industry, what you're doing, it's incredible. And I'm watching you on LinkedIn and I'm watching you on social media and you're doing incredible. We're just on two different journeys.
Yeah.
You know, me being a business owner, I'm grateful that I'm doing what I'm doing, but you're doing what you want to do or you're even figuring it out. And I'm like, everyone wants someone else's life, right? Because everyone else's life looks better on the other side, but no one ever tells you the times where maybe you're at home and you're breaking down, you're like, should I keep doing this as a business owner, right? And now I'm watching everyone else on 9 to 5 like, you guys are lucky you can leave your work at work. I can't do that. My work is
with your
me.
15% contribution.
You know what I mean? You guys could just chill. When I come home, my work is still there. When I sleep, my work is still there. But everyone wants someone else's life because it always looks better online. So I think it's kind of just remembering, what do you actually want? And not everything is greener, as green as it seems.
Facts. No. Oh, Kia, what a perfect way to end this podcast. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you back, and you're just so full of knowledge. You keep me inspired. So, guys, I hope you listening or watching have enjoyed the podcast today. But before I let you go, if anyone would like to follow you, listen to the podcast, or buy a copy of your book, where can they go to do so?
If you want to follow Pennies to Pounds, my financial education platform, it is Pennies, IES, to Pounds on all social media platforms. It's a Pennies to Pounds podcast, which is relaunching very soon. And the book is called How to Handle Money by me, Kia Commodore, and it's available everywhere. And like I said, if it's not in your local library and you are frequently go to the library, make sure you request it because they will buy it and stock it so you can go and read it.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you very much, Kia.
Thank you for having me.